How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Fade the music. My goodness, if you're just tuning in, our computer, for some reason, has decided to duplicate every bit of audio. It went on strike, and so we're getting two streams of audio at the same time. We have crack an engineering team working to fix our rebellious computer. If nothing else, we will beat it until its morale improves, because it's just a computer. The phone number, if you'd like to be on the program, 877-973-7425. Right now, we got to talk about, well, Trump and his, what he said in Georgia. Let me give you my prevailing theory. I had somebody very angrily, I don't know that angrily, but somebody emailed and said, you just said on air in the teaser of what I was about to talk about, the left does a better job than the right keeping their crazies away from the candidates. Their candidates and elected officials are the crazies. Kamala Harris is crazy. Biden is lost and has a crackhead son advising him. The squad is as crazy as it gets. I know you don't like Trump, but come on. You know, I keep getting this from Trump supporters. I know you don't like Trump. I gave the man $1,000. I would like for him to win the presidency. I don't know that he has the discipline to do so. My point in saying that in the teaser and this is that you may think that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are crazy. Y'all haven't seen the total extent of Democratic crazy, because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to win the election. And there is even deeper crazy there. You get it sometimes in manifestations of members of Congress. You certainly get it in the squad. And where do they keep the squad? Away from Joe Biden's ear, away from Kamala Harris's ear. There are many more manifestations of crazy on the left than you may realize. It comes out oftentimes on social media. Many of them think that, for example, Donald Trump wasn't actually shot at his campaign rally. Blue Anon, they call it, the crazy conspiracy theories of the left. If you think Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are crazy, you ain't seen nothing yet. And the difference between the left and the right is that the Trump campaign allows Laura Loomer, who is insane, to sit next to Donald Trump and whisper her crazy in his ear. The Trump team allows Bill White into Mar-a-Lago to talk to Donald Trump, and he goes to Georgia and regurgitates things that sound eerily similar to the sorts of things Bill White says. You have all sorts of social media crazies who they don't allow around Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And those social media crazies on the right, they get a seat at Mar-a-Lago to whisper in Donald Trump's ear. And that's what it is, too. Yes, there are absolutely crazy people in the Democratic Party who get access to Biden and Harris. But the social media crazy is a whole nother level of crazy. And the Democrats have done a very good job of keeping those people online and away from Biden Harris, while the Republicans take their social media warriors who are insane and put them right next to Donald Trump at the dinner table. So to understand what happened in Atlanta on Saturday with Donald Trump, where he spent more time attacking Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp and his wife, no less, than he spent more minutes about Kemp and his wife than he did Kamala Harris, you need to know who Bill White is. Bill White is a New Yorker who several years ago moved to the city of Atlanta from New York. He's a friend of Donald Trump's. White got to Atlanta at the time Keisha Crimeway Bottoms was the mayor of Atlanta, and crime was rampant in North Atlanta, which is the financial sector of Atlanta. It's called Buckhead. And White decided he would fund the secession movement of Buckhead, and he needed to get legislation through the legislature. And Bill White is a, horse's rear end, to put it lightly. And the members of the Buckhead delegation in the legislature had no use for him. And he managed to pour gas over his whole idea and light it on fire with other Republicans. And ultimately it was going to work. If Buckhead succeeded from Atlanta, separated from Atlanta. It would cause financial calamity for the city of Atlanta, where the state capital is, and a lot of Republicans didn't have stomach for that, and White didn't do a very good job of reassuring them. His plan seemed to many of them to be a little rushed, and ultimately Brian Kemp did not help him. He blames Brian and Marty Kemp, Brian Kemp's wife, for scuttling the plans. He declared an enemies list and said Brian Kemp was enemy number one. And then he moved to Palm Beach and joined Mar-a-Lago. He also bought apparently a retreat up in North Georgia. Bill White actually got into my Twitter feed on Sunday night and yet again attacked Governor Kemp's wife. In fact, he's attacked Governor Kemp's wife repeatedly, and he's attacked Governor Kemp. And one of his attacks on Governor Kemp is that Governor Kemp wasn't at the Saturday night rally with Donald Trump. You should know that Governor Kemp was not invited to the rally. The Trump campaign did not invite Brian Kemp to come to the rally. I mentioned Bill White because the grievances that Trump raised on stage sounded eerily similar to the grievances that Bill White has raised about Brian Kemp and Marty Kemp. I don't know that he talked to Donald Trump, but it just seems a little bit too coincidental for his grievances to be parroted out of Donald Trump's mouth on stage, particularly taking on the governor's wife, who in her own right is popular, but also a private citizen. Here's the problem for Donald Trump in this, and some of you won't like to hear this, but I have a wide spectrum of friends on the right, from those who frankly will never vote for Donald Trump to those who cannot understand anyone who would not vote for Donald Trump. I am in this weird position where I got friends who just worship the ground Donald Trump walks on and friends who think he's Satan himself. There is a component of those on the right who believe that Donald Trump's policies would be better than Kamala Harris's policies. They don't particularly care for him, and they really don't like his hardcore supporters who they view as bullies. I encounter those people. Honestly, I've got a bigger problem with some of Trump's most diehard supporters than I do Trump. They're bullies. They can't understand why you wouldn't support him. Anyone who raises a criticism of him is somehow a disloyal traitor when, it's my job to criticize everybody. I tell you exactly what I think. I don't like any of them. I'm willing to vote for him. I gave him $1,000. I want him to win, but good Lord, so some discipline. Nonetheless, I know people who, they were texting me on Saturday night when he started his tirade that said, I am getting to the position, they're telling me, I think they're wrong. Out of the gate, I'll say I think they're wrong. But they're thinking, I could put up with Kamala Harris for 2 years. We'll take back the House and Senate. We'll finally be rid of Trump and his supporters. That's dangerous thinking, but it's thinking that's growing on the right. And that thinking is coming from Donald Trump's lack of discipline. Let me explain the situation for all of you, just so you understand whether you think the race was stolen in 2020 or not. 755,000 people voted in the Republican, 752,000, I'm sorry. 752,000 people voted in the 2020 election in Georgia and then did not go vote in the runoff for the two Senate races for David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. Of those 752,000 people, we know 427,205 of them are Republicans. They're registered Republicans. So 427,205 Republicans out of 752,000 total voters didn't vote. There have been a number of polling firms that polled those people, those 427,000. And 3/4 of them said they wouldn't go vote specifically because Donald Trump told them that runoff was going to be stolen. In fact, if you want to know just how much that worked effectively, the whole "it's going to be stolen" talking point did, Democrats actually bought billboards around the state through super PACs, like Election Integrity PAC, things like that. And they said, it's going to be stolen, don't bother. That's what the billboard said. It's going to be stolen, don't bother voting. And 457,205 Republicans said, you're right. It's going to be stolen. Brian Kemp didn't summon the legislature in a special session and change the laws like we wanted. He didn't listen to Donald Trump. It's going to be stolen. We're not going to vote. And the result is the U.S. Senate went to the Democrats. Republicans talked themselves out of voting. So 752,000 people didn't vote in the runoff. 457,205 of them were Republicans, and then 228,000 new voters who didn't vote in the general election, they voted in the runoff, which is legal in Georgia. If you don't vote in the general, you can still vote in the runoff. It's 228,000 people who didn't. The margin of victory for Raphael Warnock was 95,000 votes. Had those Republicans voted, even with the new voters, the Republicans would have kept the Senate. In 2022, realizing there was a problem, Brian Kemp built up a ground game in the state of Georgia. And Brian Kemp did better in 2022 against an even better funded Stacey Abrams campaign than he did in 2018 against her. The Abrams campaign in 2022 was firing on all cylinders, had a better ad campaign, had way more money, had a better ground game operation she had spent 4 years working on building up, and she lost. And Kemp's ground game was able to get Herschel Walker, who no one thought would win the general election. He was able to get Herschel Walker across the finish line into the runoff. And then Republicans, they didn't want to come vote for Herschel Walker because he was damaged goods. Well, a lot of women Republicans did go vote, but they voted for Raphael Warnock because Trump had said Herschel Walker was his guy. And so the Republicans decided, like lemmings, to jump off the cliff for Herschel Walker and went down in flames in the runoff, giving Raphael Warnock 6 years in the U.S. Senate because those Republicans listened to Trump instead of Brian Kemp. Problem is that Trump and his handpicked candidates all underperform every other Republican in the state of Georgia. So for Donald Trump to stand on stage in Atlanta and attack Brian Kemp in a state that is a swing state that Kamala Harris has bounced back in, according to the polling, where it's now roughly a tied race again, is not smart politics. At least his campaign online is firing on all cylinders. At least his campaign is staying on an economic message online. The problem is Trump. He lacks the discipline. He tends to talk about the things the last person he talked to talks about. And when he gets surrounded by people who have petty grievances, like people who don't like Brian Kemp, and he stands on stage and he goes after Kemp, he had an opportunity to spend the whole night talking about Kamala Harris and her record. And he did do that. He just spent less time on that than he did on Brian Kemp and his wife. That's not smart politics. You may not like Brian Kemp. I personally do. He's a friend. You may not like him. You may be one of those cranks who's still arguing over the stolen election. But are you stupid enough to think that it's worth relitigating 2020 at the time you actually need Brian Kemp's ground game in the state? Because here's the other missing piece of the puzzle. Donald Trump doesn't have a ground game in the state of Georgia. Donald Trump doesn't have organizers in the state of Georgia to the extent needed to win. The only person who does is Brian Kemp. The state party has had all sorts of problems. Josh McCune, the state party chair, is rebuilding the party. The party's been in disarray. It doesn't have a lot of money. Kemp does. What on earth? I have no idea. All of this is to say, people, that the Trump campaign probably needs to focus on, well, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and not focus on their grievances with Brian Kemp, even if you have the grievances, even if you want to fight. Now is not the time to fight Republicans. Republicans were extremely unified over the last month and a half. And Kamala Harris's pick has united the Democrats. And what does Donald Trump do after the Democrats unite behind Kamala Harris? He goes to Georgia and picks fights with Republicans about stuff that happened 4 years ago. That's bad politics. I don't care who you are. That's bad politics to relitigate 4 years ago at a time you need to be focused on the future and uniting the party. They should have invited Kemp. They could have done a unity rally. Kemp would have come. He's already pledged to support Trump in 2024. But they chose not to invite him. Instead, they attacked him. And he's the guy with the ground game in the state you need. Luckily for them, he's not petty. But how many people are going to remind themselves, God, this is why I didn't vote for him in 2020. I just don't think I can do this. Maybe 2 years of Harris and we take back the House and Senate. Maybe we should do that. That's the problem, is those people on the right and the independents who think, I can put up with her for 2 years. The Supreme Court will protect us in the meantime, and then we can take the House and the Senate. You don't want people headed down that road, and because of what happened on Saturday, some of them are. AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson, oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number, if you want to be on the program, 877-973-7425. Mary Lynn, I want to go to you next. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be on your show.
Thank you.
I went to the Trump rally on Saturday. It was my very first Trump rally. And it was a good experience, very big crowd, people standing on the sidewalk that couldn't get in. Speeches were good, enthusiasm was great. I stayed and listened to most of Donald Trump, but not all of it. And I was not happy when he started disparaging Governor Kemp. I, like many Georgians, appreciate the things that he's done for us, so we could weather this Biden economy. And I just thought it was a very bad move on his part. And I wanted to get across to the campaign that they were going down the wrong road. And so, I posted something. Donald Trump had posted something about the Saturday event in Atlanta. And I did a reply to it. And I told him that, it was a great rally and everything, but I wanted to give him a piece of advice that I hoped he would seriously consider if he wants to win Georgia. And I said, you need to stop. And I put in caps, stop disparaging Governor Kemp. And I told him I realized he had grievances against him, but it was time to mend fences and put that behind him.
Look, I'm glad you said that. So go ahead. What's your question?
How do I actually get to somebody in the Trump campaign that matters, that would actually even bring that to his attention?
Oh, trust me. I have it on very good authority. It has been brought to his attention. I have it on very good authority. It's been brought to his attention. So, yeah, I don't know that we will see more of this, although oftentimes when people tell Trump not to do something, he doubles down on it. I need to be very clear here with all of you. Any movement that expects loyalty and unity to flow in only one direction is more bowel movement than political movement. And right now, everyone in the Trump supporters like, no, Kemp must be united and loyal to Trump. Everybody must be united. And it's got to go both ways in a political movement, or otherwise you're just full of crap. And that's how a lot of people are feeling right now. So be careful out there. Let me tell you about Hillsdale College, y'all. If you go to ericforhillsdale.com today, it is a great website to go to learn more about Hillsdale College and how you can support their mission 365 days a year. They are a nonprofit, and they are a great institution of higher learning. They also have a program for classical education for K through 12 schools. So you're literally, by supporting Hillsdale College, supporting restoring excellence to American K through 12 education, including civics instruction. It's not just for private schools or for homeschool. It's just for public schools too, and a number of states are embracing it. But it's got to be funded by donors like you. So if you're willing to support Hillsdale as they restore excellence to American education, you can go to Eric, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com today. Every dollar's tax deductible, and every dollar goes to improving the minds of the future in America. ericforhillsdale.com. It is well worth it, tax deductible, and a great institution to support. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The news on the ground in Pennsylvania seems to be pointing towards Josh Shapiro or Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, being Kamala Harris's running mate. Shapiro makes the most sense. He's deleted from his Wikipedia page that he was a volunteer for the Israeli Defense Force, so the progressives won't like it. Part of me still thinks she won't pick him because of progressive outrage, but he makes the most sense. We'll see. Also, the Wall Street Journal has a correction I've got to read for you. Those of you who are Jewish in particular, you're going to enjoy this. This is the correction of the Wall Street Journal. An earlier version of this article incorrectly stated Benjamin Netanyahu said Moses brought water from Iraq. He said the water was brought from Iraq. Okay. Yeah, one more time. This is actual correction in the Wall Street Journal. An earlier version of this article incorrectly stated Benjamin Netanyahu said Moses brought water from Iraq. He said the water was brought from Iraq. Not the country Iraq, but from an actual rock. You know, he struck the rock and water poured out. Yes. Well done. Well, I'm glad they corrected that. All right. I want to get to Stacy's phone call before I move on. Stacy, welcome to the Eric Erickson Show. How are you?
Hey, good. I have a real-world example proving what you said about the rally right. So you're right again, Eric. You're right again.
Oh, well, thank you. Charlie, you hear that? Charlie, you hear that?
Hey, my family stood in line for over 2.5, probably 3 hours Saturday. We did not make it into the arena because it was over capacity to get into the building. I was with my 50-year-old husband, my 20-something-year-old son, who's a new voter, my 12-year-old. All of us were engaged and enjoyed our 3 hours in the hot sun. Once we were turned away, we got in our car and started listening to the rally live in our car. All the speakers except Trump were engaging and focused on substance. Once Trump started speaking, the excitement within my family just soured. My 50-year-old husband, who's a legal immigrant from south of the border, started asking, where's the substance? Where's the policy? Why is he just criticizing people? Why is he name-calling? My 20-year-old young voter was asking, what's Trump got against Georgia? My 12-year-old just said, why is Trump mean? So now I'm at ground zero with a family that was excited, had never been to a rally, stood out in the hot sun, and now I wonder if two of them are even going to go vote.
Gosh. Yeah, look, it really is a problem. I'm glad you called and shared that, Stacey, because it's one thing for me to say it, but you were there, you stood in line. And by the way, I do think it's worth noting the Harris campaign tried to say that there were lots of empty seats. There were no empty seats in that arena. It was impossible.
There was easily 600, probably 1,000 outside that wanted to get in but couldn't.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm sorry you couldn't get in, but two, I appreciate the anecdote because, yeah, it's lots of anecdotes at some point become data. Y'all should see the email and text messages for people. People very upset that Trump just doesn't seem to have the ability to let stuff go that he should. But that gets me to the state of play in the race. This is still Donald Trump's race to win or lose. It has certainly trended in Kamala Harris's direction, but she's not necessarily in the lead, particularly in the swing states. And so you've got Rich Lowry from National Review, a conservative, who was on Fox News Sunday. He said this.
You know, he still is the president, still needs to be doing things, but I don't necessarily think his presence will hurt. I just don't think he will be on the trail with her as much as if he was running. So, they'll be selective of when they use him.
Maybe not as much as he seemed to indicate when he piped in his voice to the campaign headquarters and said, I'll be right out there with her. Rich, totally. Harris has been breaking records on fundraising. Trump is trying to keep pace, at least with the ad spending in Pennsylvania specifically. What does that tell you about this election, this race, and maybe even Harris?
She has obviously had a huge burst of momentum, right? She's gone from A month ago, she was a subpar vice president, and now she's the second coming of Barack Obama, basically. And a lot of it has to do with just sheer media adulation. A lot of it is relief among Democrats and no longer having Biden at the top of the ticket. But I think her case, and this goes to what we were talking about earlier, is basically, you guys maybe didn't like Trump and Biden very much. I'm a third force. I'm fresh and new. And what Trump has to argue is, no, she was an integral part of an administration that most Americans consider failed. You know, the president's job approval rating is 40% or below for a reason, but it needs to be disciplined, it needs to be concentrated, and we haven't seen that yet.
Bob.
Yeah, it needs to be disciplined, needs to be concentrated. We haven't seen that yet. That's from the right, Rich Lowry, editor of National Review. But here's David Axelrod, who's getting attacked for having this conversation on CNN.
Himself, who suddenly looks like the past and not the future. And so this is not the scenario the Trump campaign wanted. They thought they had this race under control. It is much more of a contest now.
Yeah, and look, she has a lot of momentum, but if you do look at the polling, this is still a really tight race. This is going to be a hard fight for either side, a tough, based on the numbers we're seeing right now.
100%. Look, I mean, anyone, there's a lot of irrational exuberance on the side of on the Democratic side of the aisle right now because there was despair for some period of time about what the November was going to look like. Now people feel like there's a chance. But it is absolutely Trump's race to lose right now. He is ahead, and he is ahead most of the battleground states. They're close. They could be won by either candidate. But there's a lot to be determined in the next 90 whatever days, 96 or whatever it is left. Yeah, I think it's a wide open race. But Trump has the advantage right now, and nobody.
Now, we can stop there as David's dog starts barking in the background, but he's getting attacked by Democrats for saying there's a lot of irrational exuberance about Kamala Harris. He's right. The problem with Trump in Atlanta on Saturday is he began to sow discord on the right among people on the right, and you have Trump diehard supporters who demand unity and loyalty for Trump while Trump shows none back to people like Brian Kemp, who already said in October of 2023 he'd support Trump over Joe Biden. If Donald Trump got the nomination, Kemp said he would support Donald Trump. He's been at the Republican National Convention in July saying he was supporting Donald Trump because of his policies, that he can put their personal issues behind them, and Donald Trump can't seem to put his issues behind. So you have people saying, well, why should I vote for this guy? 2 years of Kamala, we take back the Senate. We got the Supreme Court to protect us. We don't have Looper Bright. We don't have an expansive bureaucratic state. It's not going to be that bad for 2 years. That's what they're saying to themselves. I would disagree, but I understand why they're trying to talk themselves out of it. But the problem for Kamala Harris is, as Rich Lowry pointed out, she's still tied to Joe Biden. This is the polling division for CBS News released a poll that is superficially good for Kamala Harris, but it has problems for Harris in it.
The race to define Harris is underway. They're spending tens of millions of dollars in her campaign to play up the fact that she was a prosecutor and has worked with the president on various issues. The former president calling her a San Francisco liberal and doing other things. But on the issues also, does he still enjoy an advantage over Harris, now the Democrat, on the big issues or concerns of voters?
So that's really important because some things in this race have not changed. The idea that you would be better off financially if Trump were elected, Trump still has a big advantage over now Kamala Harris on that. And the idea that his policies would slow or decrease the number of migrants trying to cross the border, that he still has an edge on. But to your point about defining Harris, well, there's a larger number who say they think her policies are similar, mostly the same, but not entirely the same as Joe Biden's. So it's that little bit of difference defining what that is that I do think is going to be key to watch in the campaign in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and to that point, the Trump campaign, again, Trump himself may be undisciplined. His campaign is actually very disciplined. And they've already got out an ad on social media. I assume they will drop this onto television and radio stations. But their ad, it literally just hit within the last hour after all the market turmoil. This is how quick of a turnaround they had.
Here we go. Look at them go down. What some would call history in the making.
Scary. Don't say that.
We have never been down 1,000 points ever, not even intraday on the NASDAQ.
Bidenomics is working. It's working.
The stock market just taking a big old nosedive this morning.
Dow Jones is down about 1,010 points.
That is called Bidenomics.
The Dow fell more than 600 points Friday on a weaker than expected jobs report.
5%. Meta, 6%. Amazon, 6%. Apple, 9% down.
Bidenomics is working.
Fears of a recession began after Friday's disappointing July jobs report.
Bidenomics is working.
A rise like that is historically a sign that a recession is imminent.
This is Bidenomics.
What you're seeing right now in the stock market is what Americans have been feeling for the last 3 years. It's just a manifestation of it right now.
All that is called Bidenomics.
That's the ad. Just dropped. A remarkable turnaround using audio commentary, television commentary from this morning. The ad is entitled Kamala Crash. They spell crash with a K instead of a C. Kamala Crash. They're circulating that. Listen, the economic turmoil benefits the Republicans because they're not in the White House. As I say all the time, as I said in the first hour of this program, disproportionately, presidents get credit and blame for economies when oftentimes it's not their fault, except in this case, because of what Joe Biden did to provoke inflation at the beginning of his administration, when even Democrats like Larry Summers warned him not to. They do get more of the blame, and they should because of inflation. There was not inflation when Donald Trump was president of the United States. That's why a majority of Americans, even though they don't care for Trump, liked his administration more. So again, this is still Trump's race to win or lose. But nature is healing itself in that regard as well, because Nate Silver, who has his projections from used to be 538.com, now it's just Nate Silver. He left 538 in the care of ABC, and they've promptly run it into the ground. He's on his own now, but he's got his model back. It had Trump winning for the first time. It has slipped into a favorability for Kamala Harris winning the race. Democrats for the last 6 to 8 months have been attacking Nate Silver as in the pocket of Donald Trump. Today, Democrats are citing Nate Silver, and Republicans are claiming he's been bought off by Kamala Harris. Nature is healing when the parties reverse themselves. It's still Trump's race. The economy being bad, a recession looming, it works towards Trump. But what the Trump campaign has to remember, what Donald Trump has to remember, is he may have adoring fans who surround him at the dinner table at Mar-a-Lago and at these rallies, but a majority of Americans don't care for him. He's got to stop reminding Americans why they don't care for him and remind them that they liked his administration. He's got to be able to do that. There are 91 days until the election. There are less than 60 days until early voting. He's got to stay on message. And on message means focusing on Harris, not on Brian Kemp or other Republicans. He attacked Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, as a rhino. Why are you spending your time attacking Republicans you need to vote for you, Donald Trump? All you're doing is reminding them that maybe we could weather 2 years of Kamala Harris and take back the House and Senate and destroy Trumpism. This is from Bill Malugin. Per new Department of Homeland Security data provided to the Judiciary Committee between fiscal years 2021 and 2023, at least 99 illegal aliens on the FBI terror watch list were released into the United States after being arrested by Border Patrol at the southern border. Another 34 watch-listed aliens are still in DHS custody. Additionally, DHS data provided to the committee reveals terror watch list aliens from at least 36 different countries have been apprehended at the southern border under the Biden-Harris administration, including Afghanistan, Iraq, Lebanon, Kazakhstan, Mauritania, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria, Tajikistan, Turkey, Uzbekistan, and Yemen. This is information Customs and Border Patrol refused to turn over via a FOIA request last year to Fox News, citing privacy concerns and minimal public interest. Fox has reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for comment. We'll update when we hear. The new Department of Homeland Security data comes in a just-released report from the House Judiciary Committee. Look, it's just a statement of fact. If there's a terror attack in this country from illegal aliens as this situation in the Middle East heats up, it's going to be pinned on the Biden-Harris administration. The economic meltdown pinned on the Biden-Harris administration. Donald Trump, it's his race to win, but it's his race to lose. And if he keeps spending his time attacking Republicans instead of Democrats, he's probably going to lose it. He can still win. He should still win. There needs to be some better focus on his part, and the campaign probably needs to firewall him from the crazies of social media so they stop whispering in his ear before he gets on a campaign stage. One of the groups out there trying to help the right is Americans for Prosperity. They're the largest grassroots group on the right, the largest and leading grassroots organization. They go into the states and do the business of the conservative movement, educating voters about the issues, teaching their advocates and volunteers how to knock on doors, how to talk to their neighbors about issues, how to go to the state legislature or the local governments to talk about issues. You can be a part of it. All you have to do is go to americansforprosperity.org, americansforprosperity.org. You go to AFP, you volunteer with them. They've got chapters in almost every state. They teach you what the issues are, how to talk about the issues, how to advocate to your neighbors, how to go to your local government, your state government to be effective for conservatives, to be effective for families, to be effective for school choice, to be effective for border security issues, to be effective on the right. All you have to do is go to americansforprosperity.org, americansforprosperity.org. Sign up with AFP today. They've got chapters across the country. They'll make you a more effective conservative activist. All right, we may have to kill the computer before this day is over. Okay, so the phone number is 877-973-7425. It's discombobulating me. It's okay. We're going to focus. We got lots of other stuff to talk about, including the balancing between Tim Walz and Josh Shapiro. Those appear to be the final candidates for Kamala Harris, according to press reports. Shapiro makes the most sense because he is, whether you or I like him, still a popular governor in Pennsylvania. Tim Walz, however, gives Kamala Harris something that Josh Shapiro does not, and that is age. Why is that important? Well, because he would not be likely to run for president if Kamala Harris makes it through a second term. Josh Shapiro would. There are a lot of Democrats who they don't like Kamala Harris now being the nominee because they thought, well, Biden will be done by 2028, and then it'll be my time and I can run and challenge Kamala Harris, who's not a great candidate. Well, now suddenly she's the nominee and she could take it through 2032. A Tim Walz in 2032 would not be old, it would not be young enough to run for president, and so you got the Whitmers of the world and the Gavin Newsoms of the world thinking, okay, that's fine. A Josh Shapiro could still be in the game in 2032, and suddenly Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer and others, no chance at being president of the United States at all in that case. Shapiro is a threat to them because of their own ambitions, and that fundamentally becomes the problem. That being said, Shapiro brings with him the 18 Electoral College votes of Pennsylvania. If it is Shapiro, you'll suddenly start having a lot of Republicans say, well, the VP pick doesn't really matter. Actually, it matters with Vance and it matters with Shapiro because with Shapiro, he knows how to win Pennsylvania. It matters.